Alright, hello, chat. What's up? I'm back. Back-to-back uploads. How did he do it? Yeah. So, a couple things, a couple bullet points to go over before we get started on this episode. A, I was reviewing the footage from last episode, and the audio was really quiet. Um, Actually, hold on. Can I do that better? That's at max. Okay, yeah, so. Anyway, yeah, so the audio was really quiet. And part of that is probably because I'm not wearing a headset or anything. I'm literally just talking into my laptop. So I'm sitting closer this time, so hopefully it'll pick up better. But I also noticed that when the Steam like autoplay trailers for some of the things we were looking at, it was really loud. So if you get your eardrums bursted out by that, apologies. I think I went through and I fixed all of them, so I made them quieter. But if I forgot any, my bad. Hopefully it'll be better this time, but it probably won't. Second thing, so I'm sitting there, I'm eating lunch today around 12 o'clock, and I get a text on my phone from who else but fucking Hayden. It just says, what did it say? Gaiden, huh? So that was funny. So yeah, I checked. Exactly two people have watched that video, Hayden and somebody else. I don't know who. So to you two people, hello, welcome back, maybe. Um, Final bullet point. This is not related to the video, but I started replaying God of War 2018 last night. Holy shit. I I knew I was excited to replay it. I didn't realize how excited I was. I was like vibrating in my chair during that opening section. Like I was like bouncing nearly. It was awesome. It felt so good. I don't think I've ever been that excited to replay a game. So it's gonna be very enjoyable, I think. Anyway, speaking of games that are enjoyable, let's work on this one. So I realized this morning I've made a critical classic game designer blunder, where I have tried to do the setting before figuring out what the gameplay actually is, which is a classic rookie mistake that happened a lot during the development of Shrouded Depths, and I fell victim to it again. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna keep this, but we're gonna put it down here. We're gonna let that kind of sit in the bottom for a little bit. We're gonna ignore that for right now. We need to figure out. This, this is gonna. I'm not gonna push this all the way down. I'm gonna put it like right there. Maybe think about that. Because that's kind of this could be mechanical related, but we're gonna keep it down here for right now. Yeah, I did write cargo shorts. That's right. That was gonna be funny later. All right. So we need to figure out what this game actually is. Is it a card game? Is it a dungeon crawler? Is it a dungeon crawler with card game elements? Are there maps? Three questions I asked last time and did not answer. I was watching the footage back. I said a lot of contradictory statements, which was really funny. Because I was like, I don't want to do real-time combat. And then I started talking about this and implied I was going to do real-time combat, I think, with like the whole Resident Evil analogy, which was very funny. Sorry, I took a sip of water there. So let's figure out what is this game. That's the goal for this episode. Is figure out at least loosely what the genre of game is going to be. Um, hmm. So I'm trying to think. What do I want? What do I personally, regardless of setting, what do I want to make? I think the answer is I kind of want to make. I kind of want to make a card game. Oh, but this sucks. I hate everything. I just want to go play God of War, dude. I don't want to be doing this, but I need to. I need to do things. I worked on you guys should be really proud of me. I worked on my portfolio for like 30 minutes, which is more time spent working on it than like the last 2 weeks combined. So pretty proud of myself. I updated like one thing, and I was like, all right, calling it there. Gonna go make a YouTube video now. Just like all unemployed people. It's really warm in my room. I'm gonna go turn my fan on really quickly. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I walked. I hope it sounds like I cut the footage when I didn't. It literally just took me 2 seconds to walk over to the switch to flick it on. All right. So what am I gonna do? Okay. Let's expand. I don't think is gonna work. I don't think I can make a deck builder by myself. A deck building roguelike is more possible. There is potential here. And it would be a nice, as much as I do like making levels and I do like exploration, most of my portfolio is that. Like I have done a lot of that and I know I can do that is the thing. So it's like, do I want to make something that I'm comfortable with or do I want to make something that kind of pushes me in new directions? The other thing I have to ask myself is, because I'm making this by myself, I'm really bad at coding. What do I want to code? What do I think will be easier to code? All of these questions and more are things, shut up, LinkedIn email. All of these things are things I have to consider in the process of deciding what I want to do. Also, okay, actually, I have also had a thought where potentially if we do a card game, so versus equals also tabletop sim? Like theoretically, if I made a card game, I could also utilize tabletop sim. I'd have to look into how to do things on tabletop simulator, but potentially that is also an option that is not Unity or Unreal, which would be very different. It could be very interesting. Um, just maybe not as like a full thing, but like for testing purposes, maybe for like cards. This also might be irrelevant to anything I want to do. It's just a random thought I had. Hmm. Deck building roguelike. It would be really cool. Because the question I want to ask myself with the deck building roguelike, right, is what would make my deck building roguelike cool, right? What am I doing that's unique compared to every other deck building roguelike that's ever been made, of which there are a lot. So what's my gimmick, right? Like, Slay the Spire's gimmick is that it's really good, and it was kind of like the OG. Monster Train is gimmick is that it's kind of like a tower defense too. Like the enemies like move up the train, and there's different floors of the train that you're protecting. Wild Frost gimmick is I don't even know how to explain Wild Frost. Wild Frost is a very simple game. It's hard to explain. The like turn the round timers, I guess, is the gimmick for Wild Frost. The Rose. Hmm. What's my gimmick? How does my deck building really like work? Hmm. Hmm. Really just like potentially scrapping everything. It's really fun too because I was so excited about fucking this garbage. And this morning I wake up and I'm like, I've been such a fool. You're scrapping everything. This is probably gonna happen a couple times, by the way. Like, don't be surprised. This will not be the last time we scrap our progress that we made the day before or anything. That's kind of just how game design is, you know? I feel like the fact that I'm having such a hard time coming up with this means like I shouldn't go with it, but I also like don't have anything for this or this. So maybe there's like, is there a third option? I make a first person, I make Call of Duty. That's the solution. I just make another Call of Duty or a FIFA game. I would hate that. Um, so what's some, okay, let's push all this down. Let's put this, consign all this to the dungeon. I think we're going about this the wrong way. Let's talk about. I think this is a good start. Let's talk about things we want to do in the game, like things I like in games that I want to make. I like games with like factions, with like different playable actions slash like classes, I guess. So this could obviously mean like a bunch of different things, right? Like Slay the Spire, obviously, you've got your different like classes that have different like decks of cards that you can draft. RPGs, right? You've got different, wizard, warlock, and then factions. Like strategy games, like have different, like I'm trying to think, like what's a strategy game I played? Endless Legends. Endless Legends has like different races and shit, or like like Civ, like these 4X strategy games where you pick different factions that have different abilities. I like when games have different things that I can do. Um, Exploration. We have this written down somewhere, but I'm gonna write it again. Exploration. Let's write down why I like these things. Unique playthroughs. Different strategies. Ununique. Cool aesthetics. And shit. Exploration. I like finding things. I like maps. Yeah. Okay. So other things. What else do I like doing? Hmm. I like cards. I like drafting new cards, comboing things. I guess okay. So combo, I guess, could maybe be its own thing. I like when abilities combo. It's easy to do that with like card games. Comboing, um, building around certain strategies. Uh, strategies. I'm realizing this is more. Okay, hold on. This is more like roguelike elements. Elements. That's how you spell that. Elements. I have. Why does it feel like I have like a second grade reading comprehension? Like spelling. Um. Yeah, I really like being able to do these things, which I guess is kind of roguelike, kind of card based, etc. Ooh. Ooh. Hmm. Hmm. Hold on. I've had a thought. I've had a thought. Okay. So there's a game. Let's see if I can find this. Dungeon Run board game. Okay. So there's this old board game I used to play called Dungeon Run. This game. So how it worked, right, is you picked is a multiplayer game. You picked a little guy. Each guy came with their own like unique ability. Let's see if Board Game Geek has pictures of things for me. Ah, perf. That's bosses actually. That's the game. Thank you, Board Game Geek, for properly running for me. Um, come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Okay. Anyway, well that will wait for that one. But so the game is it's a multiplayer game where you each pick like a unique hero that has their own abilities, and you take turns kind of like drafting this dungeon, right? Like you go through room by room, and every time you enter a new room, you pull a tile, like a room tile off, and enter the room, and there's like monsters and like loot and traps and stuff, and you get loot to add to your character that gives you new abilities, and the goal is you're all kind of competing to get to the end of the dungeon. In the dungeon, there's this mystical artifact. You grab it, and it's the first person out with the artifact wins. Um, but it's kind of a card game, kind of a dungeon crawler, and I've just randomly thought I've not thought about this game in many years, but maybe that's it. We were kind of talking about this the other day. We're kind of cycling back. We're kind of retreading ground before we got distracted with the whole Eldritch Horror angle. Um, but I think maybe there is a line here where it's like a dungeon crawler, maybe kind of like a roguelike dungeon crawler with cards. The issue is trying to figure out how do I merge the card element with the dungeon crawling element. Like, what's the merger there? How does this work, right? Is it, mm, hmm, hmm, okay. I'm thinking more about Shroom and Gloom. Did Shroom and Gloom have a release date? I don't think it did. I need that game to fully release because that was a really fun demo and I want to play more of that game. But so you're talking about last time about Shroom and Gloom, how they have two different decks, right? They've got, the kind of like exploration deck and the combat deck. And so maybe that's I think maybe I'm getting too I like in my head, I'm like, how do I do combat without like slowing things down? Maybe that's okay. Okay, okay, okay. I need to. Okay, I'm gonna pull paint here. I think I need to sketch some ideas out. I know. Ooh, I forgot. I was trying to make my little. Oh, yeah, sorry. You can tell I was trying to use this to make my video thumbnail from yesterday, which I hope you guys enjoyed that, by the way. I don't know what game I'll do. I think every episode I'll just Photoshop myself onto a new game poster. So maybe this will be, we'll see what I'll do for this one. I don't know yet. But anyway, so, okay. Hold on. Like a bigger, that's too big. Like a 10. Yeah, it'll work. I know I'm totally, who's that one, like, streamer developer guy that everybody hates now? Who always does this? I don't remember his name. Somebody was explaining him to me, like a week or two, like one of my friends was explaining it to me, and he goes, yeah, it's like, and he always, like, pulls up. Like he's this really annoying guy, and he always, whenever he tries to like explain something, he always pulls up Windows Pay, and I go, "That sounds awesome." Like I do that. I do that all the time. That sounds great. And he goes, "No, you don't get it." I was like, "Yeah, fucking clearly not." This guy sounds awesome, but no, I I've heard not great things about that guy. But he does use Windows Paint, which I think is pretty cool. I don't know why I keep finagling with the size of the window. Okay. There's like I have something on like the edge of my brain that like I almost have an idea. It just I need something to like click it. Get rid of get this idea. Was it like Control Shift 5? Alt Shift 5? Alt Shift 5. There we go. Okay. I remembered from last time. Hmm. Maybe I feel like Dungeon Run is the answer. I wish this would load so you can get a better look at these images. But I feel like Dungeon Run is the answer. Like a single player dungeon, like roguelike dungeon crawler, use cards. How does combat work? Hmm. I wonder is okay. Okay. So okay, let's pull paint back up. So let's say so you're okay. Let's this is not. Am I crazy? I thought there was a way. The fuck did I just do? That was weird. I swear there was a way I could do like straight lines in this. Am I crazy? Yeah, I'm crazy. I don't know. No, there's definitely. I've been. There is a way to do straight lines in Windows Paint. I know I've done it before. Am I dumb? Maybe I'm dumb. Anyway, ignore that. It doesn't really matter. They don't need to be straight. So let's say, okay, you start. Hmm, okay, so you got like the entrance to the dungeon, right? Like dungeon entrance. You're here, all right? You're a little adventurer guy. You start here, and you go in, and ooh, could be a blue. Okay, is it a blueprints angle? It might be. Okay, so blueprints, if you don't know, very good game. I'm not gonna open Steam anymore. But Blueprints is a game I played some recently, and it's I'm not gonna say too much because I do think you should play Blueprints as unsped as possible. But the main gimmick of the game, right, is when you go through a doorway and then you draft like one of three rooms to resolve your effects. Maybe that's the angle. Maybe like you go in and you pick like one of three rooms, right? And let's say room one is like Spike Pit. Okay, hold on. Let's get a smaller brush size I remember to work with. So you got like you enter a room and you get three options, right? And room one is spike pit. It's like a trap spike pit. And then room two is like a goblin warren, right? Goblin warren. And then room three is like I don't know, ruined chapel. Do I just want to make dungeon crawler blueprints? Yes. Hold on. Wait, is Blueprints the was Blueprints the answer? Maybe Blueprints was the answer. Hold on. Maybe Blueprints was the answer. Okay, hold on. I think we're cooking. Hold on. I think we're cooking. I think we're cooking. Okay, so you draft one of these three. So let's say you get option these three rooms, right? And they spawn a little room, right? And so the spike pit spawns, spike pit. So I do like this, and there's like a big spike pit in the middle. Little spike pit. Look at that. Spike pit. And so you have to figure out a way to get across the spike pit. And so let's say this goes back to the Shroom and Gloom thing of you have two different decks. You have like an exploration deck. We'll just say Explo. Oh my god, Explo reference. For like all of one person to get. Unfortunately, that one person is Hayden. Explo, and then you've got your combat deck over here. And so by base, like I think you have your exploration deck out at all times until you get in combat, and then it swaps out for your combat deck. I think is how it works. So this, you have your exploration deck out, and you've got maybe like some standard. So in Shroom and Gloom, you by base you always have access to Bash, which lets you open locks, but you take a little bit of damage, and then eventually you can find keys, so you don't have to use Bash. But you always have Bash. You start with Jerky, which is like a two-use heal out of combat item, and I think you start with something else, but I don't remember what. But so maybe you've got like Bash to open a lock. We don't need to do that, but like just for the example. But let's say you've also picked up rope, like you found rope at some point, and you can use the rope to swing across the spike pit. And so now you've gone across the spike pit. You did it. Congratulations. And the door over here, there's maybe like a chest here that gives you some new card, gives you like a new card, and you go to the next room. And then let's say the next room is Goblin Warren. Goblin Warren is some Warrens of the Goblin variety here. And this is a combat room. There's goblins in here. And so then you pick up your combat deck and you've got like sword spell. I don't know. We can figure out that later. But okay, this is the thing. This works. I think this is the idea. And we're totally ripping off both Blueprints and Shroom and Gloom. And that's okay, because originality is dead and all game design is just copying off somebody else, but doing it in new and unique ways. That's like the most cynical thing I've ever said, I think. But it's kind of true. And like I know we can make this new, but I think baseline this as an idea kind of works, right? You guys feel me? Do you guys see where you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Can I hold on? I'll do a little copy this. Copy this. I'm gonna put this. Put that right there. Look at that. Okay, we got a little picture. Okay, so this could work. This could work. I'm thinking. Okay, so it's a dungeon. So it's a dungeon crawler. So dungeon crawler, right? You start the game. So you pick a class slash faction, whatever, right? You load in, start of dungeon. Goal, get to. Okay, I think goal is get to the end of dungeon, beat boss. Okay, so beat the boss at the end of the dungeon. Because I think there should be a boss monster at the end. Because this is dungeon, there's gotta have a boss monster at the end, right? You beat the boss. Do you then? Because a core thing in Dungeon Run is that you beat the boss, but then you also have to get out of the dungeon. Now, obviously, that matters more because it's a multiplayer game, and so the other players are trying to stop you from getting out of the dungeon. Do we want to just say you beat the boss and then that's it? You're good, or do you have to try and get out? Maybe something happens after you beat the boss. I think we'll add get out question mark as like a maybe thing. But for right now, we'll say you beat the boss and then you're good. You beat the boss. So enter. Okay. when enter room, draft one of X new rooms. You have access to exploration deck. Explore environments, traps, and combat deck to fight off draft slash draft new cards, read both decks. Restart. So now the question we have to ask is, and I always forget which is which, is this a roguelike or a roguelite? I don't fully remember which one is which, but I know one of them is like, okay, let's not forget that question because I don't fully remember the definitions for anything. What we need to know is there like what is because so if you die, you restart back to the beginning with like a fresh start. Is there upgrades you can get that stay consistent throughout each run? And I think the answer is yes, but what do those look like, right? So like in Hades, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was starting with Slay the Spire. I realized I can look up whichever one Slay the Spire is, and that's one of. But okay, so let's start. So in Slay the Spire, there's no permanent upgrades between runs. Every run is a fresh start. The only kind of exception is you can level up your characters, and that unlocks new cards permanently in a run. That's kind of like an upgrade, but it's very small. But there is no like outside help that you get as opposed to a game like Hades where you can upgrade your weapons, you can get the new like the powers of Nyx through the mirror to give you more stuff at the start of the run, make you stronger like at run start, right? So there's two different things, two different ways we can go about this, right? Where we can kind of just say, fuck you, start every run fresh, or we can give you some upgrades here and there um, to let you become a little bit stronger throughout the runs. How do we want to do that? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. Herm. Herm. Because I do like the idea of having a little merchant that you can buy stuff from. I'm trying to think. So different ideas that we could do, right? Is you like, like a merchant. Okay. Permanent upgrades. Upgrades ideas. Don't ask me. Okay, I'm gonna capitalize the U in upgrades. That's gonna bother me. Upgrade ideas. Upgrades ideas. Upgrade. I think that's grammatically correct, probably. Anyway, so ideas, right? Like we have some kind of merchant that we can buy possibly temporary, like run only upgrades from is potential ideas, circa like Darkest Dungeon, right? Where this before you go into the titular Darkest Dungeon, you can buy some resource, like buy different resources and stuff, like per run. Uh, that's actually a separate. Ooh, okay, that might be a separate idea, but that's also still worth. Okay. Okay, let's do potential ideas. Potential ideas. Okay, Darkest Dungeon style equipment merchant, right? So in Darkest Dungeon, right, before you go in, you can buy like torches, you buy rations because you guys have to eat like while they're exploring. You can buy various like poison cures or like small like things that protect you from status effects, like small like one-time use items per run, which could be very interesting. Potentially, we could do something like that where like you can buy resources for like your exploration deck, or maybe it's like starting stuff for your combat deck. That could be interesting. Okay, this also feels like a future thing. This feels like a scope thing. What is our core? I think we have like a decent core loop here. I think the only part of this core loop that we're missing is, are there permanent upgrades you unlock? But I think this, for the most part, hook a class, whatever. I think this is a good loop. I think this works really well. Um, the only thing is, do you get new upgrades? Like, do you get passive? And what do those upgrades look like if you do get them? Hmm. Hmm. I'm trying to think. I'm going back to blueprints and I'm thinking of how like they give you upgrades in blueprints. Um, I mean, one could argue, so if the rooms themselves are consistent in what they do, so let's say if we go back to this, like Spike Pit always does the same thing, Goblin Warren always does the same thing, Rune Chapel, we didn't get to Rune Chapel. Rune Chapel always does whatever it does. Theoretically, the upgrades you get aren't necessarily like, oh, you're like stronger, like your attacks do like +5 damage or whatever. The upgrades could be knowledge that you get, right? Where it's like, okay, I know I need a rope to get across Spike Pit. I know Goblin Warren always has like 6 goblins in it, right? And it always like Spike Pit always has a chest here with something in it. The upgrade could be knowledge. Whoa, is an interesting thought. Um, hmm. And that might be the answer right now. I think this is a really good starting point to develop. And then if we're making this and we feel like things don't necessarily work, or like we feel like we need a boost in engagement, then we can start including like upgrades that you can get. We can start figuring out what those work. But I think this is a really good starting point. I like this. I think this potentially works. And maybe again, I wake up tomorrow and I think this sucks actually. But I think this combines a lot of things that I want to do in a way that works decently well. So that's really cool. I like the progress we made today. I don't know how long has it been. 32 minutes. That's actually not bad. I think that's. I think I'm probably gonna end the episode. It's like a shorter episode than yesterday's. Um, but I'm happy with this. I think this is a nice little starting point. I'm gonna end the video, make the thumbnail. Gotta figure out. I guess Dungeon Run will be the game that I do for this one. But yeah, I think this is a really good starting point. I like this. I'm gonna sit down and think about this on my own time about ideas we could potentially do with this. And then once we get this a little bit more figured out, then we can pull setting back and we can figure out what the hell we want to do with the setting. But yeah, good work today, guys. A lot of good ideas came out. Proud of all of you. Yeah, what did I say last time? Stay fresh, chat, and rock on. Woo.